Welcome to the GovIT podcast, your compass in the complex world of government information technology. I'm Julian.
I'm Ryan, and we're back with a deep dive this time into the concept of technical debt and how it specifically applies to the public sector, namely U.S. federal government and the DoD.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a fascinating topic. And could you maybe just give us a little bit of a refresher into exactly what technical debt is?
So technical debt is the implied cost incurred when agencies do not fix problems, that will affect them in the future. Occurring the technical debt causes problems, that get kind of worse over time. The longer the debt builds up, the more costly it becomes to rectify. It's kind of like financial debt. If you don't pay it off quickly, the interest accumulates, and in this case, the extra work and costs kind of really kind of are needed to maintain and fix the issues. It just keeps piling up. In the government sector, technical debt is a huge issue. I see it all the time. It really needs to be addressed. The technical debt ceiling, is getting larger every year, and it's really starting to impact agencies and really the ability to support their missions.
Yeah, I can imagine in the federal government, this takes on, some unique characteristics given the size and complexity and the critical nature of some of the operations. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the several ways that the technical debt can kind of manifest, in the government also presents kind of a unique challenge. The first issue to consider is the legacy systems. There are several ways that technical debt can manifest in the federal government. These present very unique challenges. The first issue to consider is legacy systems. Many government systems have been in operation for decades. These older systems are often expensive to maintain, less efficient, end of life, end of support, hard to find parts if needed. Really can have serious security risks. The incompatibility of these legacy issues, with newer technologies, is another issue that we constantly see. Replacing, upgrading them can, have a big money task. Large projects, are going to be required significant resources, potentially disrupting, the critical services that are in place today. And this leads to an accumulation of the technical debt that they have.
With the third characteristic that I mentioned, the critical nature of some of these systems, that could turn into a really big problem.
It can, we also have other issues. Another issue is procurement and bureaucracy. Procurement, the processes can be complex, lengthy, and this kind of hinders, the swift adoption of new technologies. We even see systems becoming outdated during their procurement process itself. Adds right back to the technical debt.
It sounds like, a problem that needs a systemic reform. Would that be a correct assessment?
Absolutely. Budget constraints contribute to the technical debt. Limited and shrinking budgets can force compromises. So we see that a lot. For instance, a department might, lack the funds to invest in a modern, scalable solution that's kind of really needed. Instead, they decide to kind of patch an existing system just to get by. Leading to more technical debt, they basically kick the can down the road. The perception that the less risky way out is to kind of keep the old system because it works. It's something that many decisions kind of hinge on. When in fact you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. Really kind of support your missions in the future. There's a lot of mission gaps at that point, especially when they're really needed. I also kind of see that the dispersion of funds being tied. If you're looking at the DoD side, just the base level to maintain and upgrade systems, that could be really kind of pulled into a higher level that can be supported, over an effort to consolidate upgrades and used to kind of redesign and implement solutions that can be utilized across the region, CONUS, et cetera.
So when it comes to, kicking the can down the road, that makes me think about, a lot of times we get involved in projects and it's really difficult to get buy-in because people, are hesitant to, let go of the funds necessary. I think this kind of sounds like one of those scenarios, right? Where, it might be difficult to, to put forth the capital outlay, but it's a scenario where you can't really afford not to do it. Otherwise, you're going to get sort of trapped in a bad situation.
Correct. Yeah. I also see the dispersion of funds being tied, to maybe like a base level, if you look at on the DoD side, to kind of maintain and upgrade the legacy systems that are in place. And really what should happen, they should be pulling some of these things together at a higher level, be able to support and consolidate upgrades, kind of redesign, implement solutions that can be utilized across regions. So when we do this, then we are moving from upgrading all these individual systems spread across the US or even the world into upgrading a handful of systems that can be managed more effectively.
So, I feel like this keeps coming back up, but when you talk about creating solutions that can span regions and bring, operations sort of into the future, it makes me think again about the network modernization discussions that we've been talking about a lot, which I know we've been discussing a lot, but it's really that important, isn't it?
Absolutely. So it really kind of, is definitely part of that, critical piece that needs to happen because they do need to have that transformation that needs to be put forward. The budgets and the way that the procurement vehicles are put in place don't really help the large government agencies move in that direction.
Besides budget allocation, which is always the one of the most important pieces, but often also one of the biggest hurdles. I think the other thing would be security is something that we run into a lot. Do you want to talk about that?
But yeah, security considerations are huge. So the government systems, they often require the highest levels of security. This leads to the technical debt when meeting security needs forces the compromise that we see in other areas, kind of like the usability or efficiency. So the balance that needs to be kind of considered and putting the correct roadmap, to be able to meet the federal and agency requirements is pretty challenging.
And that's really a tough balance to strike, isn't it? I mean, we want our systems to be efficient and easy to use, but we also want the highest security, and those two things are often at odds, right?
And there's also something we can't overlook is just the regulatory compliance that we deal with. So the need to comply with multiple regulations, it leads to the additional technical debt throughout this process. When systems are adapted to kind of meet new regulations, it can often kind of result in a quick fix that raise complexity, reduces the manageability of the system, just access to it in general. You kind of need to really account for things like dealing with NISPOM, ISO directives, FISMA, APL, ATOs, RMF packages, kind of all add into the unknown risk from a scheduling perspective when you do large projects, that really kind of impact that technical debt in a negative way because it really extends the process.
And yeah, those are some really daunting challenges. How can government entities tackle these kinds of challenges? I mean, they seem monumental. There's got to be some sort of methodical approach, obviously, to surmounting these obstacles. You mentioned a strategic approach, a hypothetical 5-year plan that would involve assessment, execution, and continuous improvement. Do you want to get into that in a little more detail?
Yeah, so it's a complex challenge. There's really no magic bullet to resolve it in a really kind of quick way to go about doing it. More of a systematic, strategic approach, can definitely make a difference. The assessment phase would be the first year of the plan. Dedicating to identifying all the systems out there that are the highest levels of technical debt.
Right. So with I think all things really, all challenges, the first step is to clearly identify the problem and to understand, the limitations and also the assets that you have available. Right.
Yeah, you really want to kind of identify the high risk systems, that are mission critical, that are outdated, and really have the high maintenance costs. It's important to engage, with the IT personnel kind of responsible for these systems to understand the very specific issues and dependencies that it might have. And this stage also kind of involves the risk evaluation, assessment of current IT expenditures that are on the table, collaboration with other departments and agencies, kind of facing similar challenges as well.
And so once we define the scope of the problem and we've identified or collaborated with, various entities and parties involved, I would assume the next step then would be planning, correct?
Yeah, so planning is where we would go through the insights from the assessment that was developed with the strategic plan. This kind of involves setting the clear goals, establishing necessary requirements, and creating a dedicated team to move forward. Yeah, the plan could aim, to phase out into life systems, consolidate non-uniform systems, streamline the procurement side. That's a very key piece to this plan, and leverage modern IT solutions, cloud technologies, managed services, transformation things that we've been talking about over the last few months.
And so once the planning is done, I would assume that the final step would be execution, correct?
Yeah, so the execution phase would kind of span, 2 to 3 years. It's about kind of bringing the plan to life. This could involve upgrading and phasing out systems, consolidating the non-uniform systems into shared designs and services, kind of enterprise-wide solutions, not base level or kind of department-based solution sets, improving procurement process, which again, that's the very key piece to this, and shifting towards kind of the overall architecture that needs to be put into place. That really kind of goes on the cloud side, where we're not going to do the maintain aspect of the legacy systems. Everything is updated automatically. We don't have to worry about that. The managed services were feasible, especially where the technical issues are going to be there for streamlining the correct resources. Also there's going to be a strong focus on just ensuring high security standards, and really kind of dealing with the regulations that are in place.
So it sounds like working with procurement and contracting is, a key part of this. What kind of vehicles or options are available in terms of assisting with, maintaining and assisting with fixing the technical debt?
So I'm a big fan of having an advisory and assistant services contract. It's a great example to assist with fixing the technical debt issue that we have. Let me explain, what an advisory and assistant services contract is. Some of the pros of utilizing the contracts are, it's a procurement contract that is specifically designed to provide expert advice, assistance, guidance, support of the, missions-oriented business functions. The contracts range kind of include managing professional services. It helps with strategic planning, project management. You go from studies, analysis, evaluation, so it kind of fits all of our phases that we need to do, through the policy deployment, decision making, management and administration of everything from cradle to grave. So kind of a full life cycle contract. It also includes just the engineering technical services that could be laid out for implementation of new technologies. So it's a really kind of great an encompassing contract that's more of an umbrella instead of going from a base level, just maintenance contract. It's an
Right.
overall arching. I consider it more of a transformational type of contract.
So that covers off on some of the elements in the range of services. Could you maybe give a quick synopsis of what the benefits of an ANS contract would be?
Yeah, so sure. Some of the benefits are kind of the expertise that you bring into the contract. So third parties that are resources that have the latest requirements and capabilities outside of your agency, flexibility on how the contracts are tailored, efficient to contracting, it's cost effective. It kind of really supports the decision making that needs to be put in place within the agency to move into a transformational phase.
And just like any kind of a project or undertaking that involves implementation and execution, I'm sure there's constant assessment that needs to take place in order to make sure that things are going the way that you want them to sort of capitalize on successes and fix issues. And with that, I would imagine there are a lot of adjustments that need to be made when you encounter challenges.
Yeah, well, in the regular process tracking is a must. Kind of along with feedback collection, making sure the necessary adjustments are in place. It's critical to share the success across the organization and to build support and understanding of the program and how it's going to work.
And so that puts us in sort of a continuous improvement cycle, right?
So once we're kind of in that phase, the last kind of 2 years of this concept is really kind of focusing on refining the processes based on what we've learned from the executional phase. This might involve ongoing training for the IT team, continuing security monitoring, refining the resource allocation, updating compliance and regulatory environments as they change. It's also important to kind of document best practices, future-proof concepts, where possible, kind of reduce the accumulation of the new technical debt.
So that sounds like an extensive roadmap and a very clear, succinct plan of action, but clearly a strategic and disciplined approach is necessary, correct?
It's not an overnight process. It won't be without the challenges, but with a well-defined strategic plan, a commitment, all the way from the top, the federal government can make significant strides in reducing technical debt and increasing efficiency and security.
Well, that's a lot for us to think about. Maybe something we can break up into two other episodes and talk more in depth about technical debt as a huge issue that needs to be sort of explored and addressed. But that brings us to the end of the episode for today. And as usual, we'll put some information in the description for how you can reach out to Converge One Government Solutions to help address technical debt within your organization. As always, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can support us and come back and engage in some more conversations about government information technology. And again, as always, Ryan, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, everyone, and stay safe, and see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.